On a harsh, empty planet, two fierce Deathworld species prepare for a brutal battle. The humans and the Tredarians have deep, unbreakable reasons to fight: honor, faith, and the lives of their people. This fight will not be about strategy or clever weapons but raw, brutal survival where only the strongest will live. The galaxy watches silently, afraid and fascinated by this violent test of pride and power. The story follows High Inspector Zatu, an observer caught between awe and horror as he witnesses the unimaginable scale of death and sacrifice. The battle is more than war, it is a desperate ritual that challenges what it means to be civilized. With every life lost, the meaning of victory and peace is tested in ways few can understand. High Inspector Zatu stood alone in the cold viewing chamber of his spaceship. Outside, the neutral planet floated silently, a quiet sphere with thin air and barren lands. The planet was chosen carefully. It held no secrets, no allies. It was a blank canvas for what was about to unfold, a battle that would shake the galaxy. Zatu's many eyes focused on the 3D projection before him. It showed the planet's surface where two massive armies had gathered. On one side stood the humans. Their soldiers were lined up in perfect order, shining with their advanced powered armor. Each carried heavy shields that locked together, forming a wall of metal and strength. Behind the shields were riflemen ready to fire at the enemy. On the other side were the Tredarians. They looked like giant, armored spiders with 8 limbs moving smoothly and fiercely. Their bodies were covered in thick silk armor that was said to be almost impossible to break. They held laser rifles, but their true power was in their speed and skill. Their formation was less strict, flowing like a hunting pack ready to strike. The air inside the chamber was tense. Zatu's assistant, Kritu, moved beside him, clicking his many limbs nervously. "Inspector," he said, "the captain reports exactly 10,000 warriors on each side. No tricks, no extra forces. Both honor their agreement." Zatu nodded slowly. "Deathworlders have rules even in war. Without those rules this would be chaos." Kritu's many manipulators clicked faster. "But why fight like this? Why risk so many lives when you could use faster weapons, ships, or bombs?" Zatu's eyes narrowed. "Because this fight is not just about winning. It is about respect. For the Tredarians, it is about their war gods. For humans, it is about their people's lives and honor. Sometimes, violence is the only language they understand." The projection flickered, showing the first movement. The human shield wall began to march forward in unison. Behind them, riflemen aimed carefully. The Tredarians responded with bright laser beams cutting the early morning air. Some Tredarians stepped forward boldly, showing their silk armor as if to dare the humans to waste shots on them. "Such bravado," Krita murmured. "So reckless." Zatu watched with cold interest. They are testing each other. Probing for weaknesses. The first casualty fell quickly. A human sniper's bullet found a vulnerable eye in a Tredarian warrior, and it collapsed, legs folding like a broken spider. Almost at once, a human soldier stepped out of formation and was shot down by a precise laser blast. The battlefield was silent except for the terrible sounds of death. "These are not tactics," Zatu said, "but opening moves. They study each other before the real fight." Suddenly the two armies charged. The clash was violent and loud. The Tredarians used their strength to try to break the human shield wall. Their silk armor absorbed many bullets, their speed making them hard targets. They fought with fierce grace, 6 legs moving as 2 arms wrestled with shields. Krita's voice was tense. "They dominate this part of the fight. Their natural gifts give them an edge." But then the unexpected happened. The humans dropped their shields all at once. The perfect formation fell apart and soldiers scattered, drawing sidearms and knives. What looked like chaos was actually a deadly plan. Zatu leaned forward. "Watch closely. This is their true strength." Human teams of 3 to 5 began to move like predators. 1 or 2 would grab a Tredarian's legs, taking brutal hits to hold them down. Their companions would then attack the weak spots, joints, eyes, and unprotected places. It was savage and raw. The Tredarians, proud and used to strength, tried to shake off their attackers with kicks instead of guarding their vulnerable spots. Krita gasped. "They use peck hunting. They bring the enemy down to their level to fight like beasts." Zatu nodded slowly. Deathworlders return to their roots in war. They fight like it is survival itself. The battle turned. Tredarian warriors fell one by one to the humans' harsh teamwork. The silk armor was useless against close attacks. Humans used every tool, rocks, dead bodies, knives, in a desperate fight. One wounded human threw himself at a Tredarian, burning with laser fire but grabbing the creature's legs to drag it down. Others quickly finished the kill. The field was a storm of violence. The numbers thinned fast. From 10,000 warriors each, only a handful remained. One last Tredarian stood alone, beating its armored chest in a final challenge. Around it, about 50 humans surrounded silently, rifles raised but waiting. Then, with a sudden burst, the humans fired together. The Tredarian fell, riddled with wounds. The field went silent except for the heavy breaths of survivors and the cries of the wounded. Zatu stared at the numbers. 99.5% casualties for humans and total loss for Tredarians. How can such loss be seen as victory? Krita whispered, trembling. Zatu's eyes were dark with thought. For Deathworlders, this is not madness. It is evolution. This is survival. 50 survivors from 10,000 is not defeat, but triumph. The ship's engines hummed as they prepared to descend. The battlefield spread out beneath them, a graveyard of honor and pain. Krita broke the silence, voice shaking. What happens now? Will they keep fighting? Zatu's gaze was calm. No. They will meet. They will talk. Krita was stunned. Talk? After such slaughter? How can that be? Because they followed the rules. Every term agreed, every line respected. The battle was their law. Krita struggled to understand. But 20,000 dead. How can peace come from this? Zatu's many eyes softened. Violence is their way to truth. Their way to respect. It is the language they speak when words fail. As the ship landed, Zatu prepared the meeting room. He arranged chairs for both species and adjusted the atmosphere to suit all. 2 hours later, representatives arrived. The human wore a diplomatic uniform, calm but alert. The Tredarian draped in ceremonial silk, eyes weary but proud. They faced each other with heavy silence, bound by loss and survival. The Tredarian spoke first, asking for proof the rules were kept. Zatu assured them, showing data of the battle's every move. Both sides had honored their word. A deep sadness touched the Tredarians' posture, but respect remained. They agreed to end deadly duels on the planet of the Galactic Council. The humans demanded the Tredarians stop spying on their communications. Words exchanged, both sides found terms to move forward. Trade, diplomacy, even shared ventures. Zatu watched in awe as ancient enemies rebuilt trust from the ashes. As they left, shaking hands in a gesture of peace, Zatu felt the weight of what he'd seen. 20,000 died to prove a point. But that death cleared the path for peace. He thought of the survivors, heroes and legends who would carry this story forward. The ship lifted off, leaving the battlefield behind. Zatu knew the galaxy would never forget this day. When Deathworld Titans clash, only one survives. But sometimes that terrible price is what makes peace possible. The neutral planet's surface lay silent beneath the early sun, but aboard High Inspector Zatu's ship, tension hung thick like a storm ready to break. The meeting between the human and Tredarian representatives had ended, but the true challenge was just beginning. The fragile peace born of carnage demanded delicate handling. Zatu sat in the command center beside Kritu, whose many limbs trembled with nervous energy. How did you feel watching the representatives speak? Zatu asked quietly. Krita hesitated, then clicked slowly. I saw anger, exhaustion, and something else. Respect. But also fear. These Deathworlders carry wounds deeper than flesh. They do not forget. Zatu nodded. Yes. Their violence is not just physical. It's spiritual. Their wars are prayers and curses wrapped in blood. Outside, the ship's sensors scanned the barren plains below, still stained with the bodies of tens of thousands. The galaxy's greatest Deathworlders had met in a brutal dance, and now the weight of that dance pressed on the fragile peace. Suddenly, an alert beeped sharply. The ship's comm system crackled. Incoming transmission from the human camp, Kritu said, moving swiftly. Zatu's eyes focused. The human commander's face appeared, grim and worn. Inspector Zatu, reports say some of our wounded Tredarian prisoners are refusing medical aid. They claim it dishonors their gods. Zatu's manipulators twitched. How many? 15, but they are spreading their beliefs. It risks unrest in the camp. Zatu frowned. We must intervene. Allowing suffering only deepens wounds, physical and political. Krita nodded. I will arrange a medical envoy with cultural liaisons. As preparations began, Zatu reflected on the raw emotions beneath the political masks. These warriors were not just soldiers. They were symbols of their peoples, carriers of ancient pride and pain. The envoy landed near the human camp, and Zatu watched through the ship's cameras as medics approached the Tredarian prisoners. The wounded creatures lay on stretchers, their silk armor torn and stained. Some stared with defiance, refusing aid. Others whispered prayers, their multiple eyes closed in pain. One young Tradarian woman, her arms shaking, pushed a medic's hand away. Her leader, a towering figure named Gratter, spoke in a low voice. "Our gods demand that only those who fight be honored. Healing is weakness." The medics, trained in cultural respect, responded calmly. "Honor comes in many forms. We offer help so you may live to honor your gods again." Slowly, some Tradarians allowed treatment. But the tension remained. It was a test, not of weapons but of wills. Back aboard the ship, Zatu received another message. This time from the human camp. "Inspector, there are rumors that some human soldiers feel betrayed by the peace talks. They believe the Tradarians will attack again soon." Zatu sighed. "Such distrust is natural. But peace must be stronger than fear." He summoned Crito. "Arrange a meeting with both camps' leaders. They must hear each other's fears directly." The two species leaders met on neutral ground beneath a gray sky. Faces marked by battle stared at each other, eyes searching for signs of deceit or weakness. The human leader, Representative Hughes, spoke first. "We fought for our people's honor. We do not seek to destroy yours. But we cannot forget what happened here." Gratter, the Tradarian War Council member, responded quietly. "Nor can we forget. Our gods demand respect. We will honor the peace if it is genuine. But if it fails, we will fight again with the same fury." The words hung heavy. The leaders agreed to establish strict monitoring to prevent surprise attacks. Zatu watched as a fragile thread of trust began to weave between two ancient enemies. Meanwhile, Zatu's ship continued scanning the planet, detecting unexpected signs. Small groups of unarmed Tradarians were moving through the rocky hills, gathering flowers and strange stones. Curious, Zatu sent a reconnaissance drone. The images revealed a ritual site, a circle of woven silk and mineral crystals glowing faintly under the sun. Zatu's mind raced. Even in war, these Deathworlders held rituals, acts of faith to their gods and ancestors. Their violence was a language, but their rituals were prayers for peace or strength. He shared the images with Crito. "They seek meaning beyond the battlefield." Crito's manipulators moved in a thoughtful pattern. "Perhaps we underestimate the depth of their beliefs. It is not just power they fight for, but honor and spirit." Days passed. The camps remained tense but calm. Casualty recovery teams worked side by side, humans and Tradarians sharing the grim task of honoring the fallen. One night, Zatu observed from orbit as a human soldier laid a small metal token beside a fallen Tradarian. The gesture was quiet but powerful. The soldier then saluted, tears glistening in his eyes. Zatu whispered to himself, "Even in death, respect survives." Suddenly, alarms blared. The ship's sensors detected unauthorized movement near the border between camps. A group of armed humans advanced toward Tradarian territory. Zatu acted fast. "Send a warning. No violence will be tolerated." The humans halted, weapons lowered after a tense moment. Representative Hughes appeared on comms. "High Inspector, some of our veterans struggle with this peace. They seek to prove their strength even now." Zatu's tone was firm. "Strength comes in many forms. Violence now will destroy what we have built. You must hold your people to discipline." The message was clear. Peace on a death world was as fragile as the silk armor of the Tradarians. Later, Zatu met privately with Gratter. The Tradarian War Council members' eyes were heavy with weariness. "We fight with our bodies and spirits," Gratter said. "But we do not want endless war. The peace is a test of our strength too." Zatu nodded. "The galaxy watches. Your actions now will shape the future of many." The two spoke late into the ship's night cycle. Words of hope, fear, and caution mingled in the quiet. As dawn approached again, Zatu reflected on the terrible cost of the battle and the fragile hope of peace. Deathworlders were not like others. Their wounds ran deep and their language was violence. But beneath that, there was honor and the possibility of something more. The galaxy watched in horror, but Zatu saw something else. The stubborn will to survive and to find peace in the shadow of death. The uneasy calm settled over the neutral planet, but aboard High Inspector Zatu's ship, a storm of questions raged. The peace was fragile, a thread stretched thin over the scars of slaughter. The next steps were uncertain, and the galaxy's gaze felt heavy with expectation. Zatu moved through the ship's corridors, his many eyes scanning reports and data streams. Krita followed closely, his multiple limbs flicking nervously. "We must understand what drives these Deathworlders," Zatu said. "Not just their battle tactics but their beliefs and fears. Only then can peace last." Krita nodded. I have been reviewing the cultural archives of both species. Their histories are filled with cycles of war and fragile truces. But each time the violence returns. Zatu's anterior segments twitched thoughtfully. Because their wounds are never truly healed. They fight not only for land or power but for honor and sacred promises. Their gods demand it. The ship's communication console beeped suddenly. A secure message from the Galactic Council awaited. Zatu opened it carefully. The Council demanded a full report with recommendations. They expected swift answers. How to manage these savage titans, how to keep peace in a galaxy built on fragile alliances. Zatu sighed. They want order. But Deathworlders do not obey simple orders. Krita agreed. They live by rules forged in blood and pain. We must respect that. Zatu planned a bold move. He would visit the surface, walk among the camps, see with his own eyes the reality of those who survived. The ship landed in a flat clearing near the camps. Zatu stepped into the harsh sunlight, feeling the planet's strange gravity press against his body. The air smelled of dust and heat, heavy with silence. He approached the human camp first. Soldiers moved carefully, some helping the wounded, others cleaning weapons. Faces were grim, marked by exhaustion and loss. A young human approached, helmet tucked under her arm. Inspector Zatu, she said, voice steady but tired. I'm Captain Avery. It's an honor. Zatu bowed his segmented head. Captain Avery, your people have shown remarkable endurance. She smiled faintly. Endurance? We call it stubbornness. We fight because we must. For our families, our homes. Zatu watched her carefully. And your feelings about the peace? She looked away briefly. Some want more fighting. But most of us want to live. We lost too much already. He nodded. The true battle is not on the plains but in the hearts of survivors. Next, Zatu visited the Tredarian camp. The silk tents shimmered under the sun. Warriors moved slowly, tending to their wounds or sitting quietly. Gratter was there, standing beside a large stone carved with ancient symbols. He turned as Zatu approached. High Inspector, he said with quiet respect. You walk in the shadow of death. Zatu's eyes softened. I seek understanding. Your people honor strength and sacrifice. Gratter's many limbs moved in a slow, deliberate pattern. Yes, our gods test us, but we desire peace if it is real. Zatu asked, how do you ensure peace will hold? Gratter replied, through trust and through strength. We must prove ourselves worthy even without battle. The two spoke for hours, sharing stories of pain and hope. Zatu saw the deep wounds beneath the armor, the scars that no technology could heal. As night fell, Zatu returned to the ship. He reviewed the data collected on the surface, adding notes and observations. Suddenly, the ship's alert system sounded. Unusual signals were detected from a remote area of the planet. Zatu ordered a drone launch. The images showed a secret gathering, humans and Tredarians meeting quietly, away from their camps. Zatu was shocked. A joint meeting? Without our knowledge. Krita clicked anxiously. This is unprecedented. Perhaps they seek to build peace themselves. Zatu decided to investigate. He sent a small team to observe. The team reported back. The groups shared food and stories, learning from each other's culture. They laughed quietly, traded small gifts, and showed a willingness to trust. Zatu felt a spark of hope. Maybe peace will come not from commands or treaties, but from shared humanity. Days passed and these secret meetings grew. Soldiers who once fought savagely now learned to listen. Respect grew in small steps. But peace on a death world is never easy. A rogue group of Tredarian warriors, unwilling to accept the truce, prepared to strike at a human patrol. Zatu received urgent messages. They planned to break the peace. He acted quickly, sending diplomats and peacekeepers to the trouble spot. Words, not weapons, were their only tools. The rogue leader, a fierce Tredarian named Kaler, stood defiant. Peace is weakness. Our gods demand war. Zatu faced him calmly. Peace is strength. Your gods will honor you if you choose survival. Kaler hesitated, the fire in his eyes flickering. In a tense moment, the patrol returned safely. The rogue attack was avoided. Zatu breathed deeply. This is the true test. As weeks passed, the camp slowly changed. Trade routes reopened, cultural exchanges began, and the wounds of battle started to close. Zatu reflected on the long journey. The Deathworld Titans had fought with terrible violence, but now they sought something more. They were learning the hardest lesson of all, that survival means more than victory in battle. The galaxy watched still in fear and fascination. But aboard the ship, Zatu saw a future that might hold hope. He thought of the warriors, human and Tredarian, who had faced death and now faced peace. He understood at last that even in the harshest worlds, life finds a way. The weeks on the neutral planet stretched on, bringing slow change amid the scars of war. High Inspector Zatu watched closely as the fragile peace took hold, but he knew this was only the beginning. Deathworlders were never truly tamed, their fierce pride and pain always simmered beneath calm surfaces. A message arrived from the Galactic Council, requesting Zatu's presence for a hearing on the situation. They wanted answers. Was peace truly possible between such savage species? Could violence ever end? Zatu prepared his report carefully, knowing the council expected a neat conclusion. But his experiences had shown him the truth was never simple. He stepped into the council chamber, where towering representatives from many worlds watched in silence. The chamber was vast, filled with light from distant stars and echoes of ancient debates. Zatu began. Honored members of the council, what I have witnessed defies simple explanation. The humans and Tredarians fought with brutal violence, unimaginable loss. Yet from that destruction, a fragile peace has emerged, not from weakness, but from deep respect for rules and honor. A murmur passed through the chamber. One elder representative asked sharply, but can peace born of slaughter last? Or will it simply delay the next war? Zatu met their gaze steadily. Peace on a death world is never permanent. It is earned every day by courage, by trust, by sacrifice. But it can be real. The council debated fiercely. Some feared the Deathworlders' ways were too savage to control. Others saw hope in their unique form of diplomacy. Zatu returned to his ship, feeling the weight of their judgment. Outside, the neutral planet rotated slowly beneath him, a world where the harshest battle had become a new beginning. Back on the surface, both camps began preparations to leave the planet. The human and Tredarian leaders met one last time to sign a formal treaty. The ceremony was simple but solemn, a promise made in the light of a bloodied sun. Zatu observed quietly, feeling the tension of history unfolding. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near the human camp. A young soldier shouted, "Incoming vessel." All eyes turned skyward as a small ship approached rapidly. It bore the colors of a rival human faction, one that had opposed the peace. Representative Hughes frowned. They come to challenge us, or to stop the treaty? Zatu's eyes narrowed. We must prepare for the worst. The rival ship landed and its captain strode out, armed and angry. You betray humanity's strength, he declared. Peace is weakness. We will fight again. Hughes met him calmly. Your fight is not ours. We choose survival. Tension exploded as weapons were drawn. But Zatu stepped between the groups, raising his voice. Violence will only destroy what has been built. The rival captain hesitated, then slowly lowered his weapon. The moment passed, but the danger remained clear. Zatu realized peace was a fragile flower in the wasteland, easily crushed by old hatred. Days later, a memorial was held for the fallen warriors. Humans and Tredarians gathered together, sharing stories and tears. Captain Avery spoke softly. We remember those who gave their lives so we could stand here today. Their sacrifice is our guide. Gratter added, their spirits watch us now. We must honor them with peace. Zatu felt a rare warmth in his many eyes. Perhaps even Deathworlders could learn to grow beyond war. As the camps prepared to depart, Zatu received a surprise visitor. It was Kritu, his assistant, but now changed, calmer, stronger. I have learned, Kritu said. Even in violence there can be understanding. Even in death worlds life can find a way. Zatu smiled. You have grown wise, my friend. The ship's engines hummed as they lifted off, leaving the scarred planet behind. Zatu looked out at the stars. The galaxy was full of wonders and dangers, but here was a story of survival, brutal, painful, and beautiful in its own way. He knew that when Deathworld titans clashed, the galaxy would always watch in horror. But sometimes from that horror hope could rise.